And Assalamu alaikum. This is Sharik Sheikh, and today we are going to perform some basic Spring CRUD operations through Spring API. First, you will going to open your favorite browser and start with start.spring.io. In here, we have few options like which type of project do we want, which type of language do we want to code in, and project name, package, artifact, group, and the Java packaging, also the Java version and the dependencies we're going to use. So you can choose a gradable project. I personally prefer Maven, and language I'm going to be using is Java, and let's just name the artifact Spring CRUD. Yeah, let's just say Spring CRUD tutorial. We're going to use the packaging jar, and the version of Java will be 8. It's alright. Let's add some dependencies. We need JPA for Hibernate, Spring data, and configurations, especially Java persistent. I'll tell you what Java persistent would do once we add the further dependencies. And now we use MySQL driver for connecting to MySQL and also Spring. So I have already created the project, and you just need to extract it in one of your drives and open it with whichever development platform you use. I work with IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition. So let's just these are the dependencies that we added on spring.io from spring.io. This is JPA and web, and also MySQL runtime connector. So firstly, let's just set up our environment. There is application.properties file under the package resource. Let's just make the Spring data source dot URL equal to JDBC. We are using JDBC right now, and with Spring data to source.url we actually identify the database path basically and link it to our environment file. Let's just go on MySQL localhost 3306, and here we let's just so here is my workbench workspace for local instance. Now I'll just create this schema, name it Spring CRUD. Yeah, Spring CRUD would be good. And now we set it up in environment Spring CRUD use, and let's just set SSL to false. And now we set up the database username, which is root, and also password, which is also root. In my case, you need to use your own database. Sorry, I mistakenly put a semicolon here. Yeah. In my case, the username is root and the password is root from a local instance of Workbench. You can use your respective credentials to access the database. So spring.gpa.properties .dialog. Okay, what it will do, this particular JPA property tells the Hibernate which connector, database connector we are using here. So let's just MySQL InnoDB dialog. Yeah. Alright, we'll start up spring.gpa.init.ttl-auto. Okay, this is the important line. Like most of you guys, I heard the issues like my database is not updating or not creating, and I wanted to create it with my Hibernate instance. So this line right here, this JPA property, can help you out with it. You can also, delete the create schema that we have recently created, and you can create it through here by just writing create here. That's all you need to do. And I'm writing update here, so we update our schema as per our project goes. So let's just add some packages. Oh, sorry, I mistakenly named it model. It's model controller followed by model followed by repository yeah. So you can services is basically a choice. You can also, what am I doing here? SEI. Yeah, I'm sorry. So anyhow, the services is a choice. As I said, you can also do all the CRUD operations in the controller. But to make the code more clean, I use the services package here. So anyhow, let's just add the user and the annotation. Okay, the JavaX persistence annotations. It is what we got from the JPA dependency. It will help you out with. I'm not putting a direct here. Look, just make you understand the depth of the annotations. So yeah, table. Let's just name it lowercase and plural. Always use lowercase and plural for your data tables. Anyhow, now we use ID. There's also JavaX persistence, and now we use generate here the value and strategy is generation type auto. Yeah, that's the one. Go on private long ID for ID, and now we add the annotation column, and this is all for the data table column names. So let's just make it first name and user private string name. Let's just copy it. Last Okay, so what we did here is first we need ID to tell the you know we use the Java. Okay, so what we did here is we add some annotations which will going to help us create the database table, and the ID incrementer, it is the auto increment that we use in database, and which is, yeah, generation type is auto, and column is basically the database column name, and it it will the hibernate is going to make it like this. This is just hibernate's job basically. Yeah, and it will identify the name written in this camel case order, and it will just rename it like you know first underscore name for the database standards. Anyhow, so moving on, let's just add some constructors. Firstly, we need an empty constructor, and now on value constructor, and we need some getter setters. Now, yeah, we're all set. Just put it our primary key here. Yeah, that's all we need for now. And now the controller, let's just call it user controller, and let's just add some annotations here like REST controller and request mapping is basically the initial start of after your base URL, which is of course localhost colon 8080. Let's just call it API. Now let's just come to services, user service, and we also need user service interface. Oh, okay, let's just call it. Oh, we have let's just refactor it. It is user service implementation, and now we add our interface user service. What these two does is SpringBoot framework by default identify your service with the IMPL at the end, implements user service interface, and we add notation here. This is important part. The add service actually bean. What bean is in Spring Boot, it is actually functionality predefined from the backbone of your project, without having to define them. So here we are, and here we auto wire our user repository. Okay, good. Now we make a few functions here. let's just say user save or update. We just get a user object here, and we also need user find by ID, and we put an ID here, and also we make a delete function here. Delete by ID, yeah, let's just say delete by ID, and you can also call the function delete all here. Let's just call boot delete all, and delete by ID and pass D in here. Okay, what this error is, let's just see. Okay, now that we have implements the user service repository here, user service interface here, then we implement and override the methods. Yeah. So let's just come back to our controller and auto wire user service. So we're good here. Now we write our first API, which is post API. And let's just call it create user followed by API. Yeah, create user public response entity response entity, and we'll pass user here, and now we create user, and we're going to use a JSON body. So request body, and we'll pass the user object here. Yeah, we're good to go. Okay, so let's just user service dot, we're going to be using save or update to save the user and pass the user object here. And yeah, we'll just say just return the object. And now let's just deal with this error right here. Go to our implementation. Let's just not return it. Let's just call it user and then return the object. What basically the response entity will do is return the status code, like if you have an error 404 or error 200, or error HTTP status basically 500 or whatsoever, you can return it with new response entity and pass it null here, or status, you can see all the statuses. We can just use http status dot internal server error. You can use it just like this. You can return this if it has an error. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to return the user object instead. Okay, we're good to go. So writing another function for get mapping. Let's just say find user by ID and add a path variable here is user ID. And we also add path variable on our URL. Okay, so you just need to keep the same string here and here. These two strings should be identical, otherwise it won't work. So okay, let's just write another mapping. Let's just call and delete user by ID, and we also pass user ID here and public delete user by ID, and also the same user parameters. Just say return user service dot delete by ID. Pass ID here. Okay, not return the value from method with void result tag. Oh, my bad. It's a void function. It doesn't return anything. My bad. Sorry. So we have our create and update function, and also retrieve function and delete. So now we just need a little bit of work. Now that we're using the same function for save or update, we need to do a bit of tweaking here. Let's just say fine. No, we won't actually. We can use it. Yeah, we can use this function. Let's just say user repository find by ID. So the error here is because we need to put user into optional. Yeah, and now we also need to add this in our interface. I think we're good to go now. So since we're using okay, why did what this function will do here is actually it handle the not find a not found exception all by itself. It's the backbone function of a Spring Boot framework. It will handle everything on its own, so you don't have to put your code under try catch and else. So since we're using save for updating the same function, we first need to so carrying on, if user dot get id is not equal to null, then just add user data equal to user repository dot get one user dot id user dot get id. The reason we are doing this here is because the id will always be null until we save it. We're not because it's on auto increment, so it would be null initially. Okay, now we'll set up if user data equal null. Let's put around some braces. Return null. Yeah, I like it this way. Otherwise, if it's not null, then user data dot set first name set last name and also set job title, and get it from here. So get first name user dot get last name user dot get job title, and also same return statement here, just pass the different object. Yeah, so I think we are good to go now. User repository dot delete by id. It's also white, so no return statement here. Oh, whoa, big mistake. My apologies. I think it's good to go now. Let me just look it over one more time. Yeah, we have an error here. Yep, it's because we haven't put optional here. I think we're good to go now. Okay, let's just test our program. No, on the start, if you get any errors, just don't worry about it. You can always ask in the comments for the errors you're having. Anyway, we have port 8080 is already in use. Okay, so let's just define server tab port. Let me just see if my port 8080 is occupied. Yeah, it is. So let's just say port 80 81. Let's see if it works this time. Yes, it does. So let's just go on to Spring project, and you see there's a user table here with the columns we just set. And now let's come to our Spring CRUD. Yeah, request. Let's just call it Spring CRUD dot create. It's a post function, and HTTP localhost 8081, and we'll call it API, because it's the initial the request mapping part comes right here, and we need to create a user. Go right here, and now we'll select body in raw and JSON. Okay, so let's just get these three fields from here, and let me just put on a JSON body real quick. So here we are. Let's just say Shark. Let's just write here shake, and the job title is developer. Let's just see if it works. Yeah, it does. And we also have the data here. Okay, that's the one. Let's just duplicate it and rename it to let's just say find by user ID, and it's a get function, and let's just write 1. See, it's bringing back the okay, so it's bringing back the data, and now for update function, let me just duplicate it, and let's just call it update, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And we just need to pass ID here, so it knows which ID I need to update. Designer. Okay, so yeah, okay, it's updating the data. So that's pretty much it from today. And oops, I almost forgot, I also have delete API. Yeah, so edit and delete by ID. So what was the URL I made? Okay, delete user by ID. Pass ID1 here. The mapping is delete with no object and none. Yeah, let's just try it. Perfect. The data is no more. Alright guys, the project has been uploaded on GitHub, and you can get the code from there. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you in any way, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much.